All right, let's talk about a concept you hear all the time, especially in India. But what does it really mean? I'm talking about secularism. And trust me, when it comes to India, it is probably not what you think it is.
So let me just ask you, right now, what's the first thing that pops into your head when you hear the word secularism? For most of us, it's this idea of a giant wall, a complete separation between church and state, right? Well, if that's what you're thinking, hold that thought. Because in the Indian context, that's not quite the whole story.
And right here, this is the absolute core of it. The Western model, think the USA or France, is built on that very strict separation. The government does its thing, religion does its thing, and they try not to mix. But India? India chose a completely different path. It's called principled engagement. And that means, yes, the state and religion do interact, but, and this is a very big but, they do it according to a very specific set of constitutional rules. So how does this principled engagement actually work? Well, to get it, you have to understand a foundational Indian principle, and that principle is called Sarva Dharma Sambhava. It's a Sanskrit phrase, and it essentially means equal respect for all religions. Now, this is so crucial to understand. The Indian state is not anti-religion. It isn't even non-religious in a hands-off kind of way. No, its duty is to actively treat every single faith with equal honor and to support them all without playing any favorites. Now think about the implications here. This idea of equal respect isn't passive, it's an active role. It means the state can, for example, positively support religious institutions as long as it does so for everyone equally. And, here's the other side of that coin, it also means the state has the power to step into religious matters to push for social reform, like getting rid of practices that are discriminatory. It's a much more hands-on, dynamic relationship. Now, an idea this unique doesn't just appear out of thin air, right? It was forged over centuries of India's long and incredibly complex history. You know, if you go way, way back, you have emperors like Ashoka and Akbar, who were known for promoting tolerance. Then the British colonial period happened, and their divide and rule tactics really hardened religious identities. This, of course, led to some really intense debates during the freedom struggle, with leaders like Gandhi and Nehru trying to figure out the right path forward. So when India finally became independent, all these different historical threads were woven together into the new constitution. And that brings us right to the legal stuff. How did this philosophy of equal respect actually become the law of the land? Well, the people who wrote the Constitution did not leave this to chance. They baked it right in. You've got Article 14, saying everyone is equal before the law. You've got Article 15, which makes it crystal clear, no discrimination based on religion. And then you have this entire block of rights, Articles 25 to 28, giving every single person the freedom to practice and even share their faith. This is the legal scaffolding that holds the whole idea up. But look, having something written in a constitution is one thing. How the courts interpret it, that's where the rubber really meets the road. And in 1994, a landmark case, the S.R. Bomai case, went all the way to the Supreme Court. And its ruling was an absolute game changer. So what did the court say? This is huge. They ruled that secularism isn't just some nice idea in the Constitution. Nope, it is part of its basic structure. And what that means is that it's so fundamental to India's identity that even Parliament can't pass an amendment to remove it. Think about that. It's permanent. It's non-negotiable. Okay, so it's baked into the law, it's protected by the highest court, so everyone must be on the same page, right? Well, not exactly. There have been some massive internal debates about what this secularism should actually look like day to day. And you can really boil it down to two main schools of thought. On the one hand, you have the Nehruvian vision, which leans a little more Western, a modern state that keeps a rational distance from religion. But on the other, you have the Gandhian vision, which saw religion as a vital moral force. For Gandhi, the state's role wasn't to stay away, but to engage, to ensure all faiths were respected equally. That tension, that push and pull, it still shapes the entire debate today. So with these big debates happening inside the country, you have to ask, does this unique Indian model have its critics? Oh yeah, a resounding yes. And the critiques tend to come from two completely opposite directions. Some people call it pseudo-secularism, and their argument is that it's really just a way to appease minority communities for political gain. But then, on the other side, you have this very real fear of majoritarianism, the worry that the culture and norms of the majority religion are starting to dominate public life, which would completely undermine that core principle of equal respect.
And look, these aren't just academic arguments. These debates and critiques play out in very real, very high-stakes situations all across India today.
Let's take a look at a recent and really clear example: the controversy over wearing the hijab in schools. This issue puts the principles of Indian secularism to a direct and difficult test. What makes this so tricky is that you have a clash of two legitimate rights. On one side, you've got an individual's constitutional freedom to express their religion. On the other side, you have an institution's need for uniformity and order. So, where do you draw that line? Which right takes precedence? It's a really tough question with no easy answer. Okay, here's another really powerful case study: the debate around the practice of triple talaq, or instant divorce, which was practiced by a segment of the Muslim community. And this one perfectly illustrates another one of those core tensions. The state is committed to protecting religious freedom and personal laws. Okay, but it also has a constitutional duty to ensure gender justice and equality for all its citizens, especially women. So what happens when a religious practice appears to conflict with that fundamental right? The state finds itself in a very difficult position. So, with all these complex challenges, what is the path forward? How can this unique model of secularism not just survive these tests, but actually thrive? While the analysis seems to point to a few key steps: 1. Upholding what's called constitutional morality above all else. 2. Actively promoting real, honest dialogue between different faiths. 3. Carefully and thoughtfully pursuing reforms of personal laws to make sure there's justice for all. 4. And this is a big one: trying to depoliticize religion. And finally, 5. Strengthening a sense of civic nationalism, an identity based on shared constitutional values, not on any one faith. And that really is the perfect way to think about it. If Western secularism is about building a wall to keep things separate, Indian secularism is about building a bridge. A bridge that connects diverse communities, a bridge that's meant to ensure not just harmony, but also justice for every single citizen. And the real question, the one India continues to answer every single day, is what does it take to maintain that bridge?